to start the stream, Tristan?
I don't know what that was.
So this shouldn't be a terribly long stream. We're just going to be going over a preliminary meta discussion on regionals. As was pointed out to me, it's easier to mention which types are not allowed as opposed to the ones that are. It's basically everything except normal, grass, water, psychic, and bug.
Right, so it's kind of like freestyle, but the big absences are Cresselia, Defense Deoxys, Mew, Hypno, and Meganium.
And then Lugia.
Yeah.
And...
No, Lugia is eligible because of
Tempest. Right.
Right. So the legendary bands doesn't apply. The Sableye Medicham band doesn't apply either.
Right, so it's gonna be fairly similar to freestyle, except I think that the dark poisons like Skunk Tank and Alolan Muck aren't gonna see as much play because in freestyle you can kind of double them up as like an Azumarill counter that also can beat Cress and Defense Deoxys. But without Cress and Defense Deoxys, I think they kind of lose their niche.
Yeah. I'd say, looking at the different rankings for the PvP, PvPoke, and then Pokebattler, some of them make sense, some of them not so much. It's ranking Quagsire, Whiscash, all of the Mud Bombers are ranking them really, really high. I think it's just because of they're just grabbing everything, adding it all up, and just seeing what percentage wins it has. But I don't think they're going to be as great in the concentrated meta.
Yeah, I agree, because I think it's probably seen that, because Twilight has poison in it, so the Mud Boys are going to be beating all the poison types. And they're going to be most, if not all, of the rock and steel types that you saw in Boulder. So I think that's why they're being overrated.
And then on the off chance that there is something that they can't normally beat, that's where their coverage charge moves come in. So Quagsire, Stone Edge, Whiscash, Blizzard. And then if you want to be really ballsy, you run Marshtomp with Sludge. Just as anti-Tropius.
No, please no. But I mean, I think Mud Boys will see some use. Like, they're still good Pokemon, but I just think it's hard because, kind of based on some initial testing I've done, Venusaur seems quite good, and you don't want to be overly weak to Venusaur. And on top of that, Lantern seems like another good pick because Lantern with Water Gun is able to beat Azumarill, it beats Skarmory, and it beats Bastion, which is pretty good coverage. So if you're thinking
Lantern.
And it also tanks Sky Attack from Altaria, which not many
that too.
do.
But I mean, it still loses to Altaria.
Right, but the fact that
so Lantern, you'd be running Charge Beam this time around?
No, Water Gun. You need Water Gun to beat Bastiodon. If you run the Water Gun, Lantern beats Bastiodon in all even shield situations. And if I remember correctly, Charge Beam loses to Bastiodon in all even shield situations.
That does better against the rest of the water types. But when you're doing super effective, I guess neutral.
The only water type I'm expecting to see here is Azumarill, Lantern, and Mud Boys.
I mean, I think Lapras may have some play just because people think it's a Tempest and then Kingdom Powerhouse, they may risk bringing it. And also, with Altaria and Azumarill, like, there's really not much that they can do against the Dragon Pulse. Well, Azumarill, yeah, can eat that, but still.
Yeah, but the thing is, you have to realize that this is regionals, which is supposed to be more of the top players. So most of the top players should realize that Lapras isn't going to be that good of a pick.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I think this is going to be one of the first, if not the first, tournament type where people is generally going to be people that all are able to do their own sort of research. There's going to be very few people that are just going to blindly follow rankings. So we're going to expect less of that.
I'm also kind of concerned how rankings are. Tristan, is that an echo on your end?
Yeah, let me try to see if I can do something about it.
So what I was saying was the regional thing. I mean, kind of curious how that's going to go in some of the other places where there's only like 2 or 3 people in the top 400, which isn't enough to qualify for a regional, but they're the only regional location within a certain number of kilometers or even like an entire city or whatever away.
Yeah.
And then you
All
also
right.
look at the top 6,
Audio
5 of
better
them.
now?
Go again?
So
AJ, go again.
yeah, so one question that came up from the Twitch comments is Razor Leaf or Vine Whip on Venusaur. He's saying probably going to be using Vine Whip, and I tend to agree. Frenzy Plant is the most of what Venusaur's damage output is relying on, and having that extra energy gain on a decent move like Vine Whip is going to be pretty big. And
Well,
if you're
and
going to run Razor Leaf, it seems like
the other
Tropius would be the one to choose. Yep.
and the other thing to factor in is I did a few scrims and a Sludge Bomb from Venusaur actually like hurts Altaria pretty bad. Where if Venusaur already damaged some, or if Altaria was already damaged some, Venusaur can steal a win with Sludge Bomb. And so being able to
Yeah.
get those Sludge Bombs and those Frenzy Plants as fast as possible is going to be important. Not to mention,
Yeah.
if you're in Razor Leaf, you're going to lose the mirror because Venusaur double resists grass. And so the mirror is basically just trying to get off Sludge Bomb as soon as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, and then one comment was that Razor Leaf completely shreds through Azumarill. That's true. The fact is though, it's still gonna beat Azumarill with Vine Whip most of the time, and you get the added advantage of shield pressure. So I think Razor Leaf is probably the loser here,
Which is
but
surprising
there's
considering every
still
other
other
comp.
Razor Leaf users to look out for.
Also, another thing to note, part of the appeal of Venusaur is that it can beat Bastiodon in the one shield. I think it wins the two shield also, but I'm not sure. But if you're running Razor Leaf Venusaur, you actually lose to Bastiodon in the one shield.
Hey, Smash King, I'm getting some feedback in the background. I'm just gonna
I
mute
already
you
muted.
temporarily.
I already did.
So
So yeah,
it's just really looking like
that
the
utility.
general meta from freestyle most of the time, and then there's some slight changes because Cresselia and some of the psychics aren't as prevalent, or they're not even available. So one other question that came up is,
All right, go on. Go on. What was the question?
what do you think of Medicham, Azumarill, Bastiodon, Altaria, Haunter, Deoxys? Defense, well, Deoxys defense is not even eligible, so. But we're not really quite at the point of team building just yet.
I mean, we have a general idea, but also revealing that
Right.
this early into regionals just makes everyone else run it, or at least run most of it, so.
Yeah.
So then
I would
something
say
else I
the
wanted to
must
know.
brings. Oh,
Go
what's
on.
up?
Oh, I just wanted
No,
to
I was
know
just saying, I think.
with. Or sorry, you go first.
Okay. No, I was just saying to that point, the only almost close to must brings are probably, Azumarill, Medicham, Bastiodon, and then work it from there.
Yeah.
But
right, but I don't
what were you
even
gonna say?
think those are necessarily must brings. I think Azumarill is a must bring, but with the lack of psychic, Toxicroak is actually quite interesting, and could be run in place of Medicham because Toxicroak has a much better Azumarill matchup than Medicham does. And it still has that coverage against Bastiodon. And it usually beats Medicham also. And then has a solid Venusaur matchup. And then also Lantern. So Toxicroak actually has pretty interesting coverage here with the lack of psychics.
Yeah.
Also, you're gonna see
And you'd
maybe
also just be a little bit more weak to Altaria and Skarmory, so you'd have to make up for that with others. Not saying that it would be necessarily a bad thing, but you'd have to look
Right,
out
but
for it.
you'd still have like Azumarill and Bastiodon to help cover those. So those aren't necessarily that big of a worry.
Yeah.
And then another interesting thing, I think that we were talking about the other day. I don't know if I'll do it, but the possibility of running Melmetal instead of Bastiodon.
I thought Melmetal's excluded
Hmm.
because it's a mythical.
No, there's no.
Legendaries aren't banned.
Yeah, the legendary mythical
Oh right, yeah,
restriction
Nightmare.
only for Nightmare. So Melmetal beats Venusaur where Bastion loses. Um, and I think it has a little bit of a better Azumarill matchup, but then it does lose against Bastiodon. So there's a few trade-offs there. Gotcha, Jan?
Yeah, I'm here.
So, Gots, what are the anti-meta picks that you're looking at right now?
For
Do you think
regional?
Haunter is going to be viable?
Fortress.
Oh, for I don't know. Fortress' big fight was Crest, wasn't it? So I don't see it being very good.
What about Haunter? Yes?
I like Haunter's matchup versus the fighting types that will inevitably show up, and it does beat Venusaur and it does beat Azumarill. I don't know if it's good enough to bring it in, but it's definitely worth a look.
What about Beedrill?
I like Beedrill, I really do, but it's in that same vein of Haunter where it sounds good on paper, but it might just be too frail versus the power, the heavy hitter.
So, that would be non-legacy with Poison Jab, probably.
Yeah, I believe Poison Jab is the only set that beats a Azumarill. Bug Bite probably beats Venusaur because it's still neutral, but I don't think Bug Bite can beat Venusaur.
Someone in the Twitch stream was asking about Bronzong. You guys see a lot of Bronzong play here?
If Toxicroak actually does become the preferred fighting type, I definitely could see Bronzong seeing maybe a couple teams, but
Yeah.
maybe not.
Well, Bronzong also should have a good V, right?
Yeah, Bronzong does beat Venusaur pretty easily, um, but it's kind of very specialized in what it covers, so it definitely needs more than one target.
Yeah, I
Right, but
just
if it
suspect we're gonna see a lot of the heavy hitters and then a couple of like flex picks, stuff like Froslass or Haunter or even Bronzong to some extent, So it's just gonna be like the top maybe 4 or 3 that most people are gonna pick in their winning teams. And then from there
yeah.
people just work for coverage and strategies.
Yeah, I mean, I think most teams will have the Meta Zoomer Bastiodon core plus either Altaria or Skarmory, and then like two flex picks basically. But
Yeah.
like I said, you could try to swap out Medicham for Toxicroak and or swap out Bastiodon for Melmetal. Um, but we'll see how those play out. And then another interesting one is Alolan Raichu because it beats Medicham and then also has Azumarill and Skarmory coverage.
Hmm. Yeah, Alolan Raichu has been interesting. It's funny how every single one of these theme cups brings something up, and then they're like, well, he's actually kind of interesting in freestyle. So, yeah, Alolan Raichu is interesting in freestyle just because his psychic subtyping allows him to resist the heavy hitting fighting types.
And that also, Spark with Thunder Punch is such a huge shield waster.
Yeah.
I think it's largely just due to Skarmory being preferred over Altaria. Because if Altaria was still the key, then I don't think electrics would really have a place to play other than Melmetal, which is pseudo-electric.
Right.
Do you guys see any? So like in every theme cup, you get like well, let's say in Nightmare you got Shiftry and Zatu. In Tempest. I'm trying to. Well, I guess Kingdom would
Tempest
be a
was
better example.
Frostlass.
Lucario really. Tempest was,
Frostlass. And then Tropius, I guess.
I guess. Yeah. So like every themed cup kind of brings something that on its own isn't so great, but situationally is really propped up. Do you guys think anything like that will emerge? I think it seems to me like most of the freestyle stuff is good here. And because there's so many typings, there's not anything that's going to be previously really bad. Is going to be suddenly really good here.
Right. We're just seeing like a few little tweaks, like where Meganium has been kind of more preferred in freestyle recently. It seems like since that's not allowed, Venusaur is going to kind of step into that spot.
I think Venusaur's been picking up, though, because of Metacham, where it can actually at least somewhat put up a fight versus Metacham.
Right, but it's harder for Venusaur to see play, I think, in regular freestyle because of the psychic types.
Yeah, and then without the psychic types in the regionals, I think that poison subtypings have a little bit more freedom to roam. Like Toxicroak becomes a little bit more viable.
Yeah. Any confusion types that we should be looking out for? Probably not, right?
I mean, Bronzong.
Venomoth, but I don't see Venomoth making much splash.
I mean, with
Yeah, it seems like Venomoth would have a lot of problems with some of the stuff that's available here, like Bastiodon or.
It's very frail, and I don't think Toxicroak is going to be a huge thing that you would want to bring Venomoth.
No, I think the only confusion user that might see use is the Bronzong, because it can beat Toxicroak, like we said. It can beat Altaria. I'm trying to think what else.
how does
We were talking Night, and it had some interesting matchups for sure against some of the main Metamons.
Gods, how does Mr. Mime do? Because with the Psychic Fairy, it actually resists Dragon Breath, and with access to Shadow Ball, it does super effective versus Metachan.
He 120 wins overall and 206 losses. I'm going through its actual. I just simmed Mr. Mime because it was going through the confusion types, and I'll see if I see anything important.
What's
Maybe
the,
Dustox. He has confusion, right?
Yeah, he has more bulk than Venomoth because it's level 40.
Yeah, but still, it's just I don't know if it's gonna see.
That's just
Like, what?
Bastiodon fire.
Yeah, like what does Venomoth or Dustox beat really? Like, I mean, you beat Toxicroak, and you maybe beat Azumarill. But like, what else does it actually beat here?
It could be Venusaur, but that's about it.
Venomoth only wins if it has Poison Fang versus Azumarill. Otherwise, it's just Azufal.
Right.
Is that Ice Beam or Hydro Pump Azu?
I think it's just any Azu.
I mean, sorry, Ice Beam or Play Rough? Hydro Pump or Play Rough, that's what it was. My bad.
I'll sim it real quick, but I think Azumarill is just bulky enough it wins no matter.
So while you're looking that up, I have a few that are ranking really high. a lot of the Mud Bombers are ranking really high on both PvPoke and then the Pokebattler rankings. Is that just because of the amount of wins that they get against like everything, or do you think that we're going to see a lot of them have a lot of play? Gots, you've been running a lot of sims.
For what? Sorry, I was reading. I didn't quite catch.
The Mud Bombers in general, like Cash, Quagsire, Swampert.
They
Do you think they're going to see a lot of play?
They do great versus Basti and Melmetal, but I mean they're fodder for Venusaur. Like they're just straight dead versus Venusaur. Whiscash is the better because it has Blizzard, so unshielded Whiscash can get a win in. But Azu will beat him. I think Skarmory beats him without Water Gun. Yeah, I don't see, I think Mud Bomb would be too much of a liability.
Yeah.
And then this is probably a stupid question, but was there any benefit to running Water Pulse on Wishcash instead of Blizzard? Aside from the mirror?
Yeah, Pokebattler recommends it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Why would you just
Pokebattler
run
actually
Marsh
recommends.
Tomp then?
Well, it does recommend Marsh Tomp.
Yeah,
It's
but
like
it's
just to
saying
give you
Wishcash
guys.
Pulse.
It just seems like
Yeah.
Whiscash with Water Pulse is like a crappy Marsh Tomp.
Yeah, well, it's saying Wishcash with Water Gun, Water Pulse, Mud Bomb.
Yeah, but that's different than the Mud Shot farming one.
Yeah. It actually puts Bastiodon number 1 with Stone Edge Flash Cannon, Classic Azumarill, Medicham, Umbreon, Lapras, and Marshtomp as top 6.
Yeah, that just seems off to me.
Yeah.
Okay, I was kind of thinking about the flash cannon on Bastiodon. Like, what would you need flamethrower for? Like,
Venusaur.
Yeah. Venusaur and then no shield matchup.
And then Flash Cannon, the only thing it's really good for is the mirror. And even that.
In one
actually
shield.
not even that good
Yeah.
for the mirror.
It beats it reliably in the mirror without bait. With one shield, but no shields, it's still, well, it ties basically, but it loses 1 HP against Flamethrower Span.
oh, I assume you'd also lose against Melmetal
Yeah,
without flamethrower.
I'm sure
Yeah.
you would.
It's a big one.
I think you need to have flamethrower for Melmetal.
And obviously you do worse against Medicham. It's just generally doesn't seem like it would be good. And then forget about Steelix. We were laughing about that earlier before the stream. It's like just imagine Bastion Steelix matchup without Flamethrower. It's GG.
That'd be painful.
Yeah.
A slow, agonizing death.
It's like Altaria versus Bastiodon, but worse because you know you're going to that matchup losing. Well, actually, it's the
Doesn't the
same.
Altaria know he's losing anyways?
Yeah, but the Altaria at least looks majestic doing it.
If it's shiny, that's true.
Style points still
Yeah,
mean something.
it's actually ranked. This ranks Machamp and Hitmonchan above Lantern.
What?
Tropius is ranked.
No.
Yeah. Tropius and Melmetal are 23 and 24, but they're behind Mantine, Hitmontop, Lucario, Machamp, and some other stuff that I don't think we're gonna get to see that much play.
Is that
Relicanth
Legacy?
and Poliwrath are ranked pretty high.
Legacy
What's
Machamp
that?
with Stone Edge or Cross Chop? Or it's non-Legacy?
No. Counter
Oh,
Rock
it has,
Slide,
like,
Heavy
Rock
Slam.
Slide. It has Rock Slide
Yeah.
now. Don't necessarily need Legacy.
True.
No Dynamic Punch. Counter Rock Slide, Heavy Slam is what it's recommending on Machamp.
Well, Heavy Slam versus Azu makes some sense. Rock Slide versus everything else kind of makes sense.
Anyways, so the other interesting discussion is what moveset to run on Azu.
Yeah.
Because, so I was initially leaning towards player of Hydro Pump, because Hydro Pump beat Bastiodon and also gives you a better Skarmory matchup. And then Play Rough for the mirror, and so you can actually do some damage against Lantern. But on the flip side, if you don't have Ice Beam, you basically just get farmed by Venusaur because you can't really do that much damage to it.
Yeah.
Because Venusaur
Yeah,
resists
in
both Play
general,
Rough, Play Rough and Hydro Pump.
Exactly.
yeah. In general, freestyle,
You
I've
run
been
Ice Beam Play Rough.
favoring Hydro Pump Play Rough just because of what's most common in there. You just don't need Ice Beam as much in
I
general
agree.
freestyle. Like you still beat the Mirror, you still beat Metacham, and then you are able to beat Bastion with Hydro Pump. Is
The other part,
Azumarill able to beat Metacham without Play Rough though?
I think it's like a narrow win where you just Ice Beam it.
Or Hydro
Yeah.
Pump. But
I'm proposing Ice Beam Hydro Pump as like a maybe.
But then you lose the mirror.
Yeah, you do.
And with how common Azumarill is going to be, I don't know if you really
Yeah,
want to
you're right.
lose the mirror.
If you're that worried about the mirror, you could always just run Ice Beam Play Rough, and then if you get the Ice Beam shielded, you win the mirror.
Right, but that's the standard move, or that's what has been a little more popular in general. But
Yeah,
if you're not Hydro
but
Pump,
with
then
Ice
you're
Beam
losing
Play
that
Rough, you
Bastion.
lose Bastion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, but that's not that. I mean, I guess you pick your poison. Do you take the Basti fight? Do you take the Azu fight? Which one are you more afraid?
Right. Right. And up until recently, we've just been able to have Art Cake and Eat It too by doing Hydro Pump Play Rough, and you don't sacrifice much with Ice Beam, because you rarely get a win anyway against Meganium, and Play
And
Rough at least does neutral damage against it. But
and here's something else
Venusaur
that's interesting.
resists everything except Ice Beam. What's
And
that?
here's something else that's interesting is the one shield versus Toxicroak. Um, if you don't have Ice Beam, then the best you can do is tie. So in the one shield, if Toxie sludge bombs, you tie. And if Toxie shield baits with a mud bomb and then lands the sludge bomb, then Toxie wins. So without Ice Beam, your Toxie matchup gets worse.
Wow.
that's
Yeah, the Toxie
surprising.
matchup is quite rehearsed at this point, but it's mostly been Ice Beam Play Rough. I mean, most meta teams were running that move set in Twilight. Hydro Pump
Also,
didn't get so much play.
the one shield fight for Basti as Ice Beam Play Rough, you get Basti down at 9 HP from full.
With Ice Beam Span or
Yeah,
Play Rough?
just Ice Beam. Ice Beam Bubble, 0-0. Basti's at 9 HP.
Right, but then look at the one shield with Hydro Pump.
Right, yeah, no, I get it. You can't beat Basti without Hydro Pump at all.
But it's not just that you can't beat it. It's so if you just double Hydro Pump in the one shield versus Basti, it's showing a 35 HP win, but that's with a charge move tie. So if you have charge move priority, you're actually winning with 87 HP. So
Right,
we're
but
comparing a 9 HP loss to an 87 HP win. That's a pretty big swing.
again, it's Basti, which we've also talked about might be dropped for Melmetal, and that's not a pretty picture for Azumarill at all.
Doesn't Hydro Pump make the Melmetal matchup better though?
I mean, it does. It gives you a way to win, and I'm not arguing that HP isn't a nice way to win, but Ice Beam gives you the bait potential. Play Rough, Hydro Pump, you're gonna get shielded. Unless you already win the fight, you're gonna lose. With Ice Beam, you have the potential to win fights that were too close to call with just Play Rough, Hydro Pump. Like, I don't think there's a clear cut win on team.
Yeah.
I think you take the moveset you need for your team, depending on what you fear more.
I agree with
Yeah,
that.
I think I would rank them Ice Beam, Play Rough, Hydro Pump, Play Rough as pretty much even from what I see so far. And then Ice Beam, Hydro Pump is probably the loser because you just don't want to sacrifice the mirror. It's
Yeah,
too
I'd
big of
agree.
a sacrifice.
Yeah, and Play Rough Hydro Pump turns the Altaria fight into a 31 HP win, as opposed to just the god awful win that it is with Ice.
Right, but running Hydro Pump give you a better Skarmory win because in the one shield you tie Skarmory versus with Hydro Pump you just straight out win.
With shield baiting, though. I don't think you
Do
can.
you? I thought you could double Hydro Pump.
I don't know if you can double Hydro Pump before triple Sky Attacks, though. Or double Sky Attack and a Flash Cannon.
Double Hydro Pump versus Skarmory, just Sky Attack. Azu wins with 42 HP. But
Yeah.
the third Sky Attack is ready to go. So you cannot do that switching into Skarmory.
Alright. Unless he's low HP, I guess.
He would need to have 50 HP removed because he's at 61 when the Hydro Pump hit.
So I'm seeing that if Skarmory has a 9 HP head start, then it ends up as a tie.
Yes. Skarmory gets that last Sky Attack as it's dying, basically.
Dog! Tell me. No, you have not told me that. No.
Hey Brady, I'm just gonna mute you. DM me. Alright, so the other question that was brought up in the Twitch stream chat was Quagsire with acid spray. Any of you guys have experience using acid spray with Quagsire? Maybe Mason?
I tried it out a little bit. I mean, the acid spray comes out super quick, but it's just I don't know. Then you have to like choose between Stone Edge or Earthquake. I went for like I don't
Mason, you're
know.
cutting
Oh
out.
man.
Mason, you want to say that again? You're cutting out.
Yeah, you're breaking up. I think I recall a conversation we had yesterday, and our basic conclusion with acid spray was it actually does worse against the things that it tends to win, and then it does better against the things that it tends to lose. That's with Muck. So I don't know about Quagsire necessarily. Gods, have you messed around with any of the acid spray
I've been
sims?
at the brunt edge of an acid spray. I've never messed around with Sims, but I know Chustamaster is a big proponent of acid spray. He ran one for
You
Tempest.
guys hear me? I'm
Here
on
he
that.
is.
Said my mic wasn't working, but I think I got it.
All right, tell us about.
It's working now.
So I did really love acid spray Quagsire for Tempest. The more I've tried to use it in freestyle, I've had a really hard time finding a spot for it though. It just like
Really?
ends up feeling pretty neutral, but it doesn't have that swing ability, and it's a little bit, I guess maybe also just on my end, it's a little bit less predictable what matchups I'm gonna get into with him. And because he does have some really odd things, like even with no shields, there are times where you're better off acid spraying twice before the next one, like for Bastiodon, I think.
Yeah.
Matchups that you just need to learn what his sequences are, and that's a lot harder in freestyle. But I maybe just need to practice more with him still for that. So I'm not considering him for regionals, to be honest.
Have you tried?
It seems like he's.
Muck
Oh, sorry. Go
or
ahead.
Tentacruel with acid spray?
I have not played either of them with spray in any tournaments, no.
I've actually played a bit of Alolan Muck recently in Nightmare, and it's been a bit underwhelming.
Yeah, I think Alolan Muck
Yeah.
got the worst nightmare treatment out of the three of them, even with
And-
the most viable moves.
I had the misfortune of going up against a Acid Spray Tentacruel in freestyle, and it wasn't pretty. I mean, Tentacruel already walls Azumarill so much, but having Acid Spray is pretty fun, just sort of as a proverbial middle finger, because even if you're losing, you just do Acid Spray, and at least you debuff your opponent. So that's kind of nice.
The other thing that I think is actually a big factor, I'm just realizing, is when I was using it in Tempest, like people were still not used to Acid Spray. It wasn't very prominent in any meta, and then so I feel like I got way more shield off with it successfully. And then also,
Yeah.
I felt like Tempest was very, very farming heavy. And so even if you ended up losing with the Quag, turning your next matchup into a farmable matchup made a huge difference. Whereas in freestyle, that's not necessarily as big of a case.
And also, I feel like if you see a Muck or you see a Quagsire, you're just going to assume acids, and I don't think it's very effective, especially when your opponents like know that it's coming, because that's the only reason you would bring.
Well, but even like in Tempest, like you just sneak through that first Stone Edge. Then, like they'll assume that you're going to spray, and you get a Stone Edge through when they still have two shields. Like there are ways to make it work both ways. The whole reason that I like Quagsire over any of the other spray users is because his two moves charge up at the same time almost. Or really don't want to take a Quake or a Stone Edge without shielding unless it's something that already resists it. There's ways to punish even if they know if the spray is coming, which is less true for some of the other guys.
Right, that
And-
makes sense.
And in Muck's case, I found the most successful runs I've ever had with Muck and Acid Spray were fights he already won. So I could Acid Spray, didn't care if they shielded or not, and Poison Jab the thing to death, and then really punish the next Pokemon that came in. Those were the best times I ever had with Muck and Acid.
I mean, there's a niche for that. If you can get an Azumarill as like a safe swap, and then you bring that guy in, farm it down, and spray the next thing, like there is probably a role for that somewhere. I just don't know if it's worth one of your 6 slots to bring just that.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
pretty tough competition for those 6 slots as is.
Looking at
Right.
the Twitch chat
And it's
right
hard to justify it if they're not countering like Cresselia or one of the big psychic heavy hitters. Like that was the main role of the dark poison types in general freestyle.
Yeah, I
Right,
think
so if you wanted Acid Spray, it would have to be either Tentacruel or Quagsire then. Because I don't think there's a spot for a Alolan Muck here.
No, I think it does well versus Venusaur, but I don't think that's enough to bring it.
now, and
And that's
Yeah.
And then also
Tentacruel really wants 3 charge moves though.
everything
Wait,
wants
you know,
three
he
charge
really
moves.
wants-
Flygon wants 3 charge
Yeah,
moves.
well, some guys
Flygon
don't care as
needs
much.
charge moves.
If Flygon
Yeah.
had Mud Shot and all 3 charge moves, it'd be broken. I mean, it's nerfed because it has trash health, but Edge Quake plus Dragon Claw, that's perfect coverage.
Yeah, that would be really good. One question, Pasam717 asked about Lugia, and could he maybe replace Altaria and Skarmory? What do you guys think?
No way. It's just
I agree.
it's just not gonna happen. Skarmory's biggest thing is that it doesn't lose, or it can potentially win versus Azumarill, depending on the set. I don't think Lugia wins at all versus Azumarill.
Yeah. Without going too much off topic, I think Lugia is really going to have its time to shine in a psychic meta that doesn't have dragon typings allowed, because then it sort of fills in that Altaria Skarmory role. And you would almost expect psyching to be, you know, maybe countered by like a bug typing or a dark typing, and so like Lugia at least dishes out neutral damage to some of those.
Yeah, unfortunately, Lugia's time to shine was Nightmare, and then they went and banned it, and it's not even that good.
Yeah. Would it
Xatu
even be that
outclasses
great
it.
in Nightmare?
No,
No.
I've run the sims on all of the banned Pokemon, and Cresselia and Medicham deserve it. Like they're super over centralizing. Sableye, Mew, and Lugia deserve to be unbanned. They
Yeah.
really wouldn't break anything.
What about Defense Deoxys?
That needs to be banned. Like just permanently
Yeah,
banned
that
from Great League.
yeah, it really does.
From Great League?
Yes.
Man, I
It's not
disagree.
terrible in
But
Great League, but
No,
in
yeah,
it's
Nightmare,
I
too
disagree.
broken in Great League.
It's not. If you actually play against those Deoxys in freestyle, uh, the sim is somewhat misleading. He's not. He can. Have you ever taken a crunch from a Skuntank?
Oh yeah, it takes like 60% of the health.
It's ridiculous, and its HP is pretty low. Obviously, its defense is high. Um, it's got interesting coverage in its movesets, but again, like you can only pick two, so you make sacrifices depending on which two you pick. And there's a lot of good options against it, so even if you can neutralize it as a threat, it's it's not it's not broken. I really don't think it's broken.
I mean, I'm
the
saying
thing
it's
is,
broken
everything
more
that
for the fact that it has counter as a move.
Yeah, I don't I
the thing
I
is
don't think so.
everything that beats Medicham beats Deoxys defense. So you're already prepped for Medicham, and that's really all you need.
I
Yeah.
mean, for the most part,
Unless
I
you're
think there's
running
a
like
few niche cases. Like
yeah, like
Azu-
Skarmory for example
Az-
doesn't want to take a
Azum
Thunderbolt.
and Azumarill. Because Azumarill
Yeah,
beat
Azumarill goes pretty
uses
even.
to defense Deoxys.
Yeah, it just sort of depends on that one. It's a hard one to switch into, DD. Yeah. But anyway. We got a few more minutes.
Yeah.
I think we said we wanted to run until
Yeah.
the
Goth,
top
I
of the
actually
hour.
have a question for you if we can end the stream on that. Looking at your spreadsheet and what you've run through, do you think there's any hidden picks that could warrant a top 6 spot or even a top 8 to be cut down later?
I haven't found anything. Like I've been doing a bunch of random like tests and stuff, but I think for the most part the 15 Pokemon on the horizontal list are basically it. With Spiritomb obviously being iffy still at the moment.
But if Spiritomb is being written off, well, not necessarily written off, but less considered for Nightmare, wouldn't that also make it less considered for Freestyle?
Oh yeah, no, I don't see Spiritomb being in freestyle at all, ever.
Yeah, that was my
Spiritomb just
question.
seems like a worse Sableye for
After the
freestyle.
Shadow Claw buff, yeah.
No, that was my
Before the
question
Shadow Claw
regarding
buff.
Freestyle, though, not
Oh,
Nightmare.
oh, sorry. Um, no, I don't think there's anything, and I haven't done super extensive sims on the regional cup yet. Just I haven't had time. But I think it's just going to basically mirror freestyle almost completely with a few niche off meta picks as people find stuff.
I know I'm still picking Toxicroak to be potentially one of those kind of things that,
Surprises.
yeah.
Yeah, some poisons could rise, like Beedrill maybe could become fringe relevant also. I think the
Yeah,
lack of
Beedrill, or it's kind of the Beedrill versus Haunter debate because they both fill a pretty similar role.
but like I feel like it wasn't even in the debate before. Like
Oh, definitely, yeah.
it may not end up cracking it, but like there are a few players that are on the fringe that weren't there before, and I feel like it's mainly poison types that don't have to fear the psychics as bad.
I agree. Definitely.
Yeah. We got time for one more question. Math Nerd Guard asked on the the Twitch chat. He asked about the charge moves for Toxicroak. I think it's pretty much agreed upon that Sludge Bomb and Mud Bomb are the preferred choices, right? Does Dynamic Punch really offer anything that those two
Not really, because you already have counter for your fighting coverage, and most of the stuff you're hitting with fighting, which is going to be like steel and rock, those are both weak to ground anyways. Um, so, and then you want that sludge bomb for that coverage against Azumarill.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And also, I think you
Funny
need, I
how
think a combination of Mud Bomb and Sludge Bomb is needed to beat Medicham, if I remember correctly.
yeah.
I think it's 2 Mud Bomb and then a Sludge Bomb, then just counter it to death. Or maybe
Yeah, it's
it's 1
something
Mud
like
Bomb,
that.
2 Sludge.
So the point is, I think if you drop one of those 2 bombs, I'm not sure if you can actually beat Medicham anymore, which is
You
kind
need
of
to bait the
main
mud
selling.
bomb into the sludge bomb to beat
Right.
Medicham.
Right. So if you drop one of those, then you can't beat Medicham anymore, and then you basically lose part of the selling point of Toxicroak.
Yeah. And like, as far as Bastiodon, for example, you still have the double super effective, and the stab doesn't add that much to that matchup, and you reliably beat it anyway.
Yeah,
So
and
it
the
just
Mud Bomb
seems like
comes out pretty
those 2
quick.
charge moves are good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, the Mud Bomb means that you can beat Lantern pretty easily too, which is nice.
Yeah.
And gives you like a fast firing neutral damage against Venusaur. I just don't
I
think
agree.
Dynamic Punch really gives you any additional coverage that you're not already getting from counter.
Yeah. So I'd like to close out, since there's no more questions, on one more question. This is from me. Gun to the head. You have to pick 6 right now. I'll ask a couple of you guys. What would you pick? Toss out.
Oh, this is tough. I mean, the team I was scrimming with most recently was Azumarill, Medicham, Bastiodon, Venusaur, Lantern, and Skarmory. Um, so if I had to pick right now, it's probably those. But again, I'm also considering Toxicroak and maybe like a Haunter or something.
Cool. Gots?
I have no idea. Like I said, I haven't really done much of regional yet. I've been in full nightmare mode for the moment.
All right. Fair enough. What about you, B Gold? Gun to the head. You have to pick 6.
A couple days ago, Mason and I did a bit of regional test scrim stuff. We ran the exact same team, which is what Tristan just said. It's those 6, and I
Okay.
mean, it was pretty fair also. The one thing that you need to know about that team is Venusaur is the thing you need to protect, but Venusaur is the one thing you need to watch out for. Because I actually nearly swept Mason one battle just with Venusaur. He
Cool.
doesn't want to talk about it though.
Yeah. So short stream again. Just
Wait,
for
AJ,
those
what
of
would
you
your
who
6
joined
be?
late. Oh, I have no idea. I've been focusing so much on Kingdom and Nightmare a little bit for the infographics, which are coming soon. That I just haven't had any time to look at the regionals meta.
Okay.
But looking at that team, I agree with most of it. I think Toxicroak is very interesting for the reasons that you mentioned. So,
And that
we'll
team
see.
is the team we said we liked is actually pretty weak against Toxicroak. So that's another
Yeah.
thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
All right, and
So
before
as I was saying,
or go
oh
ahead.
yeah, what's up?
I just want to throw something in before we end the stream, but go first.
Yeah. No, I was gonna close out, so go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So I just wanted to say that next week on Thursday, we're still working on figuring out a time, but we're planning on doing a Nightmare Cup meta like breakthrough now that we've kind of had more time to dive into it, and we're going to be doing that as a joint stream with King. So that'll be pretty
Yeah.
fun. So stay tuned for updates on that.
And he's probably going to be running
Yeah.
the mirror on his end through YouTube Live.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, hopefully, what our plan is post an infographic and a full detailed Nightmare meta-analysis on Reddit.
By Monday, hopefully.
I don't want to give a date just because, maybe that changes. Life situations sometimes delay things.
No, we just told Niantic
And
and
then
say
give a
soon.
few. Just but definitely soon and tentatively Thursday for a live stream next.
And
And
team
so, as we
submissions
were
will be-
saying earlier in the live stream, was that this is all tentative. You know, like we've barely streamed a little bit, and we've looked at a few sims, but we haven't delved deep into analysis just yet for regionals. So take it with a grain of salt. It's totally possible that we're blindsided by something like Camerup just disrupting the meta. So
Yeah, because I mean we're kind of all spread like many different ways right now. Because you know, still focusing on Kingdom. I've still been practicing because I have a cup tomorrow, and then trying to dive into the Nightmare meta as well as the regional meta. It's kind of just like a lot to process all at once.
yep.
as well as also
And
doing
that's
team building and advice on that end for any of the 3 cups is something we need to consider first before we can actually give out advice. Because if
Yeah.
our advice
Yeah.
is wrong, we're not going to hear the end of it. Every single tag.
right.
Anyways, thanks for joining, everyone. As AJ said, we're going to hopefully have a stream on Thursday with Kiang to discuss more of the Nightmare. Anyone who put any teams in team submission, we'll try to get to that either later on next week or next weekend. We'll figure out a time. And we can resume regional discussion through chat, but there may not be a dedicated stream until later on. So, thanks for joining,
All right.
everyone.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. Yeah.